Today is Wednesday, May 11th. It's one of the most controversial issues in politics right now. Who's responsible for inflation? America's leaders weighed in. And we'll explain a new report that found we're in one of the most violent eras in the U.S. in decades. Plus, how two public school teachers are getting tickets to space. It's the end of an era. Goodbye to the iPod. And one NFL legend just made the most lucrative deal in sports broadcasting history. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. Well, President Biden addressed the nation about one of the biggest economic challenges facing Americans right now, inflation. The president promised that tackling the problem is his, quote, top domestic priority. But in Washington, there's a lot of debate about who is to blame. In his speech, President Biden pointed to three big causes. 1, the war in Ukraine. 2, supply chain issues caused by the pandemic. And 3, he blamed Republicans in Congress, since he says they're blocking his so-called Build Back Better economic plan. Biden says his plan would help inflation. Republicans say it would make inflation worse. Some Republicans also say Biden has failed to come up with new ideas to fix this problem and is overstating how his efforts so far might help. And then there are some economic experts who say it's not Biden or lawmakers to blame. They're pointing to the Federal Reserve, saying it waited too long to raise interest rates, while others point to all the pandemic spending. By the way, the Labor Department is expected to release its next Consumer Price Index reading today. That's the big inflation tracker that comes out every month. And it's expected to be another doozy. If you want to see evidence of inflation in the U.S., just go to the gas station. Once again, gas prices hit an all-time record this week. The nationwide average for a regular gallon of gas is now $4.37 a gallon. That's up 47% from a year ago. Diesel prices also hit an all-time record. That average is up to $5.55 a gallon. So when will we finally see gas prices go down? Well, one AAA spokesperson says we could actually see a slight drop in gas prices next week since oil prices have gone down recently. But in the long run, prices are not expected to get back to pre-pandemic levels anytime soon. As Gas Buddy puts it, quote, there's little, if any, good news about fuel prices heading into the summer. The war will likely keep raging in Ukraine for a long time. At least that's what America's top intelligence official told lawmakers this week. The U.S. spy chief Avril Haines said Russia is preparing for a, quote, prolonged conflict, and that Russian President Putin still plans to achieve goals beyond eastern Ukraine, even though that's where most of his troops are now. She also said the U.S. thinks Russia will keep up its nuclear threats to try to scare Western officials away from helping Ukraine's military even more, but that he probably would not actually authorize a nuclear attack unless he thought his presidency or Russia itself is in peril. Still, even without nuclear attacks, this war is doing a lot of damage. The United Nations says thousands of civilians have been killed and more than 12 million have been driven out of their homes. Sadly, deadly gun violence is hitting new highs in the U.S. The CDC put out a new report that found murders with guns rose 35% in the year 2020 compared to just 1 year earlier. And that means gun homicides reached their highest level in more than a quarter century. In some ways, the findings were consistent. The report says homicide rates went up in every region of the country and in every age group. There were still some disparities, though. For example, it found homicide rates went up more in areas with higher poverty levels. The study didn't investigate the exact reasons for all these increases, but the CDC had some theories. It said the pandemic might have played a role since during the first year, there was a lot of social isolation. And there were disruptions to mental health services and other social programs. So the report also laid out some suggestions, like it says inequities need to be addressed in the U.S., plus it talks about restoring vacant buildings and offering green spaces, since research has found that could lower the risk of gun violence, too. A longtime government contractor is now under fire for how it handled ingredients for COVID-19 vaccines. U.S. House Democrats released a new report that said last year, Emergent BioSolutions hid evidence of quality control problems from FDA inspectors. And there were apparently problems going on for a while, like equipment failures, employee errors, and contamination of some of the ingredients. This new report says 400 million doses ended up having to be destroyed between March of 2020 and February of this year. The good news is none of the contaminated doses were ever released to the public. The bad news is they all went to waste. And the lawmakers who released this report say the real victims are those who would have benefited from the shots that never actually made it to market. All that said, Emergent says a lot of the report is wrong. A company spokesperson told the New York Times it did not knowingly mislead the FDA or any partners. And as far as how many doses ended up in the trash, he said it's hard to know, because when getting rid of certain ingredients, it's tough to estimate how many doses they would have made. To be clear, the Biden administration and Emergent canceled their contract last year. That was worth $650 million. But the company is still working with Johnson & Johnson to make more of its vaccine in a separate deal. More news is coming up, but first, this podcast is sponsored by Indeed. There are multiple ways to tell a news story, but when it comes to finding great talent for your business, there's one way that's going to help you do it faster. You need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. You can find great talent faster through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed is a powerful hiring partner that can help you do it all. In fact, Indeed delivers 4 times more hires than all other job sites combined, according to Talent Nest. So while the right candidate is doing everything they can do to find you, you can be sure you're doing everything you can to find them too by using Indeed. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/newsworthy. Offer good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/newsworthy. Indeed.com/newsworthy. Terms and conditions apply. Pay per qualified applicant, not available for all users. Need to hire? You need Indeed. 2 teachers will soon get to take a ride to space. Jeff Bezos' company, Blue Origin, donated 2 seats on one of its space flights to benefit a nonprofit in New York City. It was a buy one, give one donation, with the second seat going to a New York City public school teacher. Well, billionaire hedge fund manager Ken Griffin put in the winning $8 million bid in this auction, and then said his ticket to space should also go to a teacher. Griffin is the founder and CEO of the hedge fund Citadel Securities. He said he hopes this moment will inspire the next generation while underscoring the extraordinary role teachers play in the lives of children. Billionaire Elon Musk says he would allow former President Trump back onto Twitter. That is, if Musk's deal to buy the platform goes through. Musk talked about this at a Financial Times conference and called Twitter's decision to ban Trump a morally bad one and foolish in the extreme. He said permanent bans should be extremely rare and only used on accounts that are bots, scams, or spam. Remember, Twitter and later Facebook and YouTube banned Trump after the January 6th Capitol riot last year. The social media companies accused the president at the time of inciting violence, and Trump has not been allowed back on any of the platforms. Since then, Trump launched his own social media app called Truth Social, and he's said in the past he would not come back to Twitter even if he were allowed. Well, we'll see if Musk gets the chance to carry out the change in policy. Twitter has accepted his offer to buy the company, but the deal has not yet been finalized. Say goodbye to the iconic iPod. Apple is officially discontinuing the device that helped reshape the music listening experience over the last 2 decades. Yes, the iPod was first introduced back in 2001. It was promoted as a way to hold 1,000 CD-quality songs. The iPod Touch came later in 2007. Now, the last remaining model of the iPod Touch will be sold in stores while supplies last. But after that, there will be no more. Of course, the latest and newest devices keep coming, and we can expect some new big announcements from Google. The tech giant's annual conference for developers starts today, and it's often the time the company debuts new or updated products and software that it plans to release over the next year. Rumor has it we may get an early look at the next major version of Google's mobile operating system, Android 13, and maybe Google's first wearable, a Pixel Watch. Perhaps a new pair of wireless earbuds, too, along with other potential surprises. Stay tuned. One of the video game industry's most iconic partnerships is coming to an end after nearly 3 decades. Soccer's global governing body, FIFA, and the video game maker EA Sports have been in tense negotiations for months over a licensing deal. And now they've ended without an agreement. So the hugely popular FIFA video game franchise will be no more. Well, at least not under that name. EA Sports says it's going to keep making soccer-themed video games. And it'll still have most of the teams and players that have made its games so popular. Meanwhile, FIFA says it's going to develop new games too, with other studios and publishers. The current deal will run through to the Women's World Cup next summer, but after that, a new game, EA Sports FC, will launch, and the new FIFA game is expected in 2024. Seven-time Super Bowl champion Tom Brady now has 375 million new reasons to retire. Fox Sports says Brady will join the network as its lead NFL analyst when his playing career ends. As the New York Post reports, Brady and Fox agreed to a contract worth $375 million. That's reportedly more than Brady has made in his entire 22-year playing career, and it's the most lucrative deal in sports broadcasting history. The legendary quarterback confirmed the deal on Twitter, but he also said he still has a lot of unfinished business on the field with the Buccaneers. Remember, Brady first announced his retirement back in February, but changed his mind 40 days later. And that's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, a message from our sponsor, ZocDoc. Finding and booking a doctor who's right for you does not need to be a terrible experience. Will they take your insurance, understand your needs, or be available when you can see them? With ZocDoc, the answer can be a refreshingly pain-free yes. ZocDoc is a free app that shows you doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, and are available when you need them. The verified patient reviews allow you to see what other real humans had to say about their visit. So when you walk into that doctor's office, you're set up to see someone in your network who gets you. Every month, millions of people use ZocDoc, and when I need a new doctor, I'm one of them. And now, so is the executive producer of this show, who told me she had a great experience and has returned multiple times to see the doctor that she found on ZocDoc. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then start your search for a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Now back to Work Wednesday. Well, it seems there's one big challenge that's coming out of remote work. A recent study found brainstorming is more diminished during video meetings than it would be in person. Researchers watched hundreds of engineers in 5 different countries try to come up with creative ideas. And outside experts found the ideas that came out of in-person meetings were more productive. The researchers figured out why, all by tracking eye movement. They say when people are on video calls, they are so hyper-focused on the face in the box that their eyes and minds don't wander as much. So the study author says now she turns off her camera when it's time to brainstorm in a meeting. That challenge aside, research has also found some big positives to working from home. A separate study found the ability to work remotely is strongly linked to happiness at work, and that tends to correlate to overall life happiness. In jobs where remote work is possible, employees say they enjoy the perks like no commutes, lunch breaks with their families, and having their pets around for company. All right, thank you so much for joining us as part of your daily routine. If you haven't done so already, be sure to hit that subscribe or follow button in your podcast app so you never miss an episode. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.